The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow over the quaint streets of Dawsonville, Georgia. Harold Bennett walked slowly, his cane tapping rhythmically against the cobblestone sidewalk. At 76, he had mastered the art of savoring each moment, much like he had taught his students during his years as a math teacher. Today, he had a specific purpose. He was on his way to the bank to make a generous donation to help a struggling friend. The quaint storefronts, with their painted signs and flowering window boxes, reminded him of his late wife, Margaret, who had always loved this town. As he ambled along, memories of their life together flooded his mind. He could almost hear her laughter, mingling with the sounds of the bustling street. "Harold, you always take too long to get anywhere," she would tease, her eyes sparkling with mischief. He chuckled softly, imagining her nudging him playfully as they walked hand in hand. But today, he felt a sense of determination. He wanted to do something good in her honor. Arriving at the bank, Harold paused at the entrance, taking a moment to adjust his glasses. The air inside was cool, and the familiar scent of polished wood and paper greeted him. He noticed a long line snaking towards the counter, and a sigh escaped his lips. Patience had always been one of his virtues, something he often imparted to his students. "Math is not just about numbers, it's about understanding," he would say, a smile lighting up his face. Just like math, life required patience and understanding. As he took his place at the end of the line, Harold observed the people around him. There was a young mother juggling a fussy toddler, an elderly couple whispering sweet nothings to one another, and a man in a crisp suit tapping his foot impatiently. It was then that he caught sight of Lucas Miller, the bank teller. Lucas was in his 30s, with tousled hair and a look of frustration etched across his face as he hurriedly processed transactions. Harold remembered the last time he had been in the bank. Lucas had been quick to dismiss him when he had asked about a simple inquiry. "Next," Lucas called, his voice sharp and impatient, as he waved another customer forward. Harold felt a twinge of empathy for the young man. Life in the service industry could be demanding, and sometimes people forgot that everyone had their own battles to fight. As the line inched forward, Harold's mind drifted back to Margaret. He could almost hear her voice. "Always remember, Harold, that kindness costs nothing." He nodded to himself, resolving to share that sentiment with Lucas, hoping it might help the young man find a little more peace in his day. Finally, Harold reached the counter. He placed his cane against the wall and adjusted his glasses. "Good afternoon, Lucas," he said cheerfully, though he could see the tension in the younger man's posture. Yeah, what can I do for you?" Lucas replied, barely meeting Harold's gaze as he shuffled through the papers in front of him. Harold fumbled for his donation envelope, his fingers trembling slightly. "I'd like to make a donation to the charity campaign you're running," he said, his voice steady and warm. Lucas's eyes flickered with impatience. "Just fill out this form," he instructed curtly, handing Harold a piece of paper without looking up. The tension in the air shifted, as if the other customers sensed the growing friction between the two men. Harold took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "You know, Lucas, sometimes it's important to slow down and appreciate what we have," he said, trying to infuse a sense of calm into the interaction. "Life moves quickly, and we often forget to cherish the little things." Lucas rolled his eyes, his irritation bubbling to the surface. "I don't have time for a life lesson right now, sir," he snapped, his voice sharper than intended. The murmurs in the bank quieted, and Harold felt a pang of disappointment. He had expected a different response. Instead of retreating, he stood firm, his heart open. "I understand that life can be overwhelming. Kindness and patience can make a world of difference," he replied, his tone gentle yet unwavering. The tension in the bank thickened, a palpable silence enveloping them as Harold's words hung in the air, challenging the very fabric of Lucas's hurried existence. Lucas's patience was wearing thin as he listened to Harold's calm voice. He rolled his eyes, focusing on the screen in front of him. "Sir, if you could just sign here, we can finish this up," he urged, tapping his finger impatiently on the desk. Harold, however, remained undeterred by the impatience radiating from the young bank teller. "Lucas, was it?" Harold said, glancing at his name tag with a gentle smile. "I understand that things can get hectic, but I believe there's always time for a little kindness, don't you think? Kindness doesn't keep the line moving, Mr. Bennett," Lucas replied curtly, his voice laced with frustration. He felt the tension in the air, but he was too caught up in his own world of deadlines to acknowledge. Harold's expression softened, his eyes reflecting a wisdom that seemed to transcend the moment. I know you're busy, but sometimes we need to pause and consider the people around us. Life is too short to rush past each other without acknowledging our existence. The words hung in the air, and Lucas felt a flicker of irritation mixed with something else, an unease at being called out in front of the other customers. He glanced around, noticing a few people were now watching their exchange with mild curiosity. I really don't have time for this, he muttered, trying to dismiss the conversation. If this touched your heart, it will touch someone else's too. Hit subscribe, leave a like, and share it with your family. Let these stories bring hope and light into more homes. But Harold, undeterred, continued, I'd like to speak with the manager, if that's all right. Lucas frowned, feeling a surge of embarrassment. It was one thing to deal with grumpy customers, but this felt different. After a brief moment, Eleanor, the bank manager, approached. She was a woman in her 40s, with a warm smile that contrasted with the tension in the room. Is everything all right here? She asked, glancing between the two men. Harold straightened up, his voice calm and pleasant. Yes, thank you for coming, Eleanor. I'm here to make a donation for the charity campaign you're running. I just wanted to take a moment to discuss it with your team. Oh, that's wonderful, Eleanor exclaimed, her demeanor brightening. We truly appreciate your generosity, Mr. Bennett. What can I help you with? As Harold explained his intention, Lucas felt an unexpected pang of guilt wash over him. There was something undeniably genuine about Harold's desire to give back. He watched as Harold handed Eleanor an envelope, its significance seemingly far greater its simple appearance. Please make sure part of this goes toward Lucas's fund, Harold added, a soft smile playing on his lips. I think he deserves a chance to start anew, to experience the joy of giving as well. Lucas felt the room spin slightly at Harold's word. His mouth fell slightly open, stunned into silence. He had expected to be reprimanded, perhaps even scolded, but here was this elderly man, advocating for him in a way that he felt he didn't deserve. The atmosphere shifted palpably. Others in the bank were watching, their expressions softening as they absorbed Harold's kindness. Eleanor turned to Lucas, her eyes wide with surprise. This is an incredible gesture, Lucas. I had no idea you were struggling to connect with our customers. Perhaps we can work on this together. The weight of Harold's words pressed down on Lucas, and for the first time, he felt a rush of emotion, a mixture of shame and gratitude. I didn't realize, he started, glancing at Harold, who was looking at him with a gentle understanding. Don't worry, son, Harold said, his voice soothing. We all have our battles. It's never too late to learn and grow. Lucas felt a lump forming in his throat, overwhelmed by the unexpected kindness thrown his way. Thank you, Mr. Bennett. I appreciate that. The bank was quiet for a moment, the usual bustle replaced by a sense of shared humanity. Harold's kindness had ignited something in Lucas, revealing a glimmer of hope amidst his frustration. And as he looked into Harold's eyes, he felt the stirrings of change beginning to take root within him. As the atmosphere in the bank shifted, Lucas felt an overwhelming wave of guilt wash over him. His gaze drifted around the room, taking in the expressions of the other customers, who were visibly moved by Harold's unexpected generosity. Some looked on with admiration, while others wore expressions of contemplation. It struck Lucas how the elderly man, with his patient demeanor and gentle spirit, had managed to touch the hearts of those around him, even in the midst of his own frustration. Why did I have to be so impatient? Lucas thought, his heart racing. He recalled his own family's struggles during tough times, how they had to scrape by, and how he often had taken for granted small joys in life. Suddenly, the weight of his earlier demeanor felt suffocating. He could almost hear the echoes of his mother's voice, reminding him of the value she had instilled in him: kindness, empathy, and understanding. Taking a deep breath, Lucas stood up, his legs trembling slightly as he stepped away from the counter. The murmurs in the bank quieted as he turned to Harold, who was still standing there, a warm smile gracing his face. Mr. Bennett, Lucas began, his voice shaky but sincere. I'm really sorry for how I treated you earlier. I didn't mean to be rude. I was just overwhelmed. The customers exchanged surprised glances, and Eleanor raised an eyebrow, clearly taken aback by the sudden shift in Lucas's demeanor. Harold's smile widened, his eyes twinkling with understanding. It's all right, Lucas. We all have our moments. Life can be a lot to handle sometimes. His voice was calm and soothing, which only added to Lucas's sense of unease. I didn't realize how important this was to you," Lucas continued, struggling to find the right word. "I was so focused on getting through the day that I forgot to see the people in front of me. You've reminded me of what really mattered." The room felt charged with a new energy, as if Lucas's admission had released a collective breath held by everyone present. Eleanor, visibly moved, stepped forward. "Lucas, that was brave of you. It takes a lot to admit when we're wrong, especially in front of others. This is a step towards becoming a better version of yourself." Lucas nodded, feeling the sincerity of her words. For the first time in a long while, he felt a flicker of hope ignite within him. Harold placed a reassuring hand on Lucas's shoulder. "Every day is a chance to learn and grow," he said gently. "What matters most is how we choose to treat one another. Kindness can change the world, one small act at a time." Lucas swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. He was still processing the weight of Harold's words when he suddenly felt the urge to share more. "I've been so caught up in my own worry that I've neglected to see how my actions affect others. Thank you for showing me that." The elderly man nodded, his expression softening. "Sometimes we need a nudge to remind us of the simple truth. It's never too late to start anew." As the conversation unfolded, the atmosphere in the bank felt lighter, the tension dissipating like morning mist. Customers began to smile, some even nodding in agreement. Lucas's heart swelled with an unfamiliar warmth. It was as if the walls he had built around himself were slowly crumbling. Eleanor, witnessing this transformation, couldn't help but remark, "Harold, you truly have a gift for bringing out the best in people. Your kindness is contagious." Harold chuckled softly, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Kindness is like a pebble dropped in a pond. The ripples can reach far beyond what we can see." Lucas's gaze shifted between Harold and Eleanor, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that this moment would linger in his mind, a turning point that would inspire him to be better, not just for himself, but for those around him. "From now on," Lucas declared, his voice resolute, "I promise to be more mindful of my actions and the way I treat others. I want to make a difference, just like you have." Harold beamed, his heart swelling with pride. "That's the spirit, Lucas. You're already on the right path." As the trio shared a moment of mutual respect and understanding, a sense of unity enveloped the bank. In that instant, among the sounds of rustling papers and quiet conversation, Lucas felt a profound connection to Harold and the people around him, one that he had long overlooked. He knew he had a journey ahead, but now he was ready to embrace it with an open heart. In the days that followed Harold's unexpected act of kindness, Lucas Miller found himself in a whirlwind of emotion. The very next morning, as he stepped into the bank, the sun streamed through the large glass window, casting warm patterns on the floor. He felt different, lighter almost. As he settled into his usual spot behind the counter, he noticed the first customer of the day approaching. It was an elderly woman, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a faded handbag. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I assist you today?" Lucas asked, his voice steady and welcoming, a stark contrast to his previous impatience. The woman looked up, surprised by the warmth in his tone. I just need to deposit a check," she stammered, her brow furrowed with uncertainty. "This is more than just a story. It's a reminder of life's greatest lesson. Subscribe, like, and share with someone who needs this message today." "Of course, let me help you with that." Lucas took her checked, gentle hand, making a point to maintain eye contact. He could feel the weight of those around him, the years of experience etched on their faces, the stories they carried. As he processed her transaction, he spoke softly, asking about her day and genuinely listening to her response. As she left, a smile graced her lips, and he felt a flicker of satisfaction he hadn't known before. Throughout the day, he continued this newfound approach. When a middle-aged man rushed in, his demeanor frantic, Lucas didn't flinch. Instead, he paused. "Take a breath. We'll get this sorted out." He guided the man through the process with patience, his heart swelling with a sense of purpose. Over the next few weeks, Lucas transformed. He approached every customer with a newfound patience, surprising both his colleagues and the patron. His co-worker, Jenna, observed this shift with a mix of admiration and confusion. "What happened to you, Lucas? You're like a different person," she remarked one afternoon as they shared a break in the staff room. Lucas chuckled, a hint of embarrassment creeping into his cheeks. "I guess I had an epiphany. It's amazing what a little kindness can do, not just for others, but for yourself." Meanwhile, Harold Bennett continued to visit the bank regularly. Each time he entered, he was greeted by Lucas's genuine smile. The warmth in their interactions grew, transforming their relationship from antagonistic to supportive. One afternoon, as Harold approached the counter, Lucas leaned forward, eager to engage. "Mr. Bennett, I've been meaning to ask, how did you come to be so wise about kindness?" Harold chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with mirth. "Wisdom is often just the result of life's lessons, my boy. I've seen a lot over my 76 years, and I've learned that kindness is the greatest currency we have." Lucas nodded, feeling inspired. "I want to learn more. I want to make this a better place for all of us." "Then just keep doing what you've started, Lucas. It's never too late to change," Harold replied, his voice filled with encouragement. Eleanor, the bank manager, couldn't help but notice the positive shift in Lucas. His interactions with customers were becoming smoother, filled with respect and understanding. One day, she decided to approach him during his break. "Lucas, I've been impressed with your progress lately. Would you be interested in some mentoring? I could help you develop your interpersonal skills even further." Lucas's eyes widened with surprise. "You would? I'd love that, Eleanor. I want to be the best I can be for our customer." "Great! Let's set aside some time each week to work on this together," she suggested, a smile lighting up her face. With each passing day, Lucas found joy in his job for the first time. He relished the conversations with customers, the little moments of connection that made each interaction meaningful. He began to see the bank not just as a workplace, but as a community hub where he could make a difference. One afternoon, as Lucas was restocking pamphlets in the lobby, he overheard a couple discussing the upcoming charity event Harold had mentioned during their first encounter. The couple spoke about how the community was coming together, and Lucas felt a swell of pride knowing he was a part of that change. "Isn't it wonderful?" the woman exclaimed. "Harold is such a gem. He really inspires us all to give back." Lucas smiled to himself, knowing that Harold's influence was reaching far beyond their personal interaction. He felt a sense of gratitude welling up inside him, not just for Harold, but for the journey he was on, a journey of empathy and discovery that was reshaping his life. Harold Bennett stood in front of the local community center, basking in the warm glow of an early afternoon sun. A small group of children, eager and full of energy, surrounded him, their faces bright with curiosity. Today, he was teaching them math, but more importantly, he was sharing stories of kindness and the importance of community. As he scribbled numbers on a whiteboard, he could see their eyes widen with wonder, not just at the math, but at the tales he spun. "Math is like a puzzle," he explained, drawing a simple equation. "Sometimes you need to try different pieces before you find the right fit, just like life. Sometimes, when we're kind, we can solve puzzles we didn't even know existed." The children giggled, clearly enchanted by his analogy. "Mr. Bennett, did you really help someone with your math skills?" a girl named Emma asked, her head tilted, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. Harold nodded, a smile creeping across his face. "I helped a friend of mine calculate how much food we'd for a community picnic. It was a success, and everyone got to enjoy a wonderful meal together." He paused, looking at each child. "And more importantly, we built friendships that day. That's what kindness does. It connects us." Meanwhile, across town, Lucas Miller had taken a different route in his life. After his transformative encounter with Harold, he had started volunteering at the local church, trying to give back to the community he had once taken for granted. He was sorting through donations when he overheard a conversation between two older women. "Did you hear about Harold Bennett's wife? She was such a lovely woman," one woman said. "Indeed, they were quite the pair, always helping others, even when they didn't have much themselves," the other replied, her voice filled with nostalgia. "I remember when they organized that fundraiser for the local school. They raised more money than anyone expected." Lucas felt a pang of respect for Harold deepen inside him. He had always known Harold as the kind old man who had taught him a lesson that day in the bank, but he had never realized the extent of his generosity and commitment to the community. It struck him how little he had understood about the man who had become somewhat of a mentor without even trying. Later that day, Lucas found himself at the community center, drawn by the sound of laughter and learning. As he entered, he spotted Harold surrounded by the children, their faces aglow with excitement. He watched for a moment, feeling a warmth spread through him, grateful for the impact Harold had made on his life. "Hey, Mr. Bennett," Lucas called out as he approached, a hint of nervousness creeping into his voice. Harold turned, his smile widening. "Lucas, come join us. We're discussing the magic of numbers and kindness." "I'd love to," Lucas replied, sitting down among the children. As he listened to Harold weave together math and morality, Lucas felt something shift inside him. It was as if he were seeing Harold in an entirely new light, a beacon of hope and compassion. After the lesson, as the children ran off to play, Lucas took a moment to speak with Harold. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other day, about slowing down and appreciating life," he began hesitantly. Harold nodded, encouraging him to continue. "And I guess I've never really thought about how my actions affect others. I was so caught up in my own frustration that I didn't see how my impatience could hurt someone else," Lucas admitted, his voice low. Harold placed a comforting hand on Lucas's shoulder. "It's never too late to change, Lucas. Remember, every day is a new chance to make a difference. Just like math, it's about finding the right approach to help those around you." "Thank you, Harold," Lucas said, his heart swelling with gratitude. "I want to do better. I want to help, like you do." "I believe you will," Harold replied, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "Just take it one step at a time, and don't forget to share your own story. Sometimes, it's in our struggles that we find the greatest connections." As they stood there, the sun slowly beginning to set, Lucas felt a profound sense of belonging and purpose. He realized that the bond he was forming with Harold wasn't just about admiration. It was about understanding, empathy, and shared experience. The world around him seemed lighter, filled with possibilities, and he felt ready to embrace them. Lucas hurried through the bank's back office, his heart pounding in his chest. He had stumbled upon a hidden letter tucked away in the envelope Harold had given to Eleanor. The letter revealed a truth that shook him to his core. Harold was suffering from a terminal illness. The donations he had been collecting were not just a means to help others. They were part of a scholarship fund in his late wife's name, a final act of love and legacy. The weight of this revelation pressed heavily on Lucas, igniting a fierce urgency within him. "Harold!" he called out, bursting into the lobby where Harold often sat after his transaction, sharing stories with anyone willing to listen. The usual buzz of the bank felt muted, and Lucas scanned the room frantically. He spotted Harold on a bench, a serene expression on his face as he chatted with an elderly woman. The sight of Harold, so full of warmth and wisdom, struck Lucas like a bolt of lightning. He feared he might be too late. "Lucas, what's the matter?" Harold noticed the panic in his voice and rose to meet him, concern replacing his smile. "I need to talk to you." "It's urgent," Lucas said, breathless as he approached Harold, the letter clutched tightly in his hand. "Is everything all right?" Harold's brow furrowed, genuine worry etched on his features. "No, it's not," Lucas replied, shaking his head. "I found something in the envelope you gave Eleanor. The letter, it talks about your illness and the scholarship fund." His voice trembled, and he struggled to keep his emotions in check. "I had no idea." Harold's eyes softened, and he took a deep breath. "I didn't want to burden anyone with my troubles. My time is limited, yes, but I've lived a rich life, Lucas. I've seen kindness change lives." "I'm so sorry," Lucas said, his voice cracking. "I never realized how much you were doing for others, for your wife." "Kindness is a legacy," Harold replied, his voice steady but tinged with sadness. "It's what we leave behind that matters most. I wanted to ensure her memory would live on, that others could benefit from the love we shared." Lucas felt a lump rise in his throat. "You've changed my life, Harold. Your kindness made me see the world differently. I want to honor your legacy. I want to help." A soft smile spread across Harold's face, but there was a glimmer of sadness in his eyes. "You already are, Lucas. Every time you choose to be patient, to listen, you are honoring that legacy. But you must promise me something." "Anything," Lucas implored, his heart racing. "Promise me you will continue this work, that you will carry the torch of kindness," Harold urged, his voice earnest. "There are many who need it, and you have the power to make a real difference." "I promise," Lucas said, his voice strong and resolute. "I'll start a charity. I'll make sure your wife's name is remembered, and I'll spread kindness in this community, just like you did." Harold's eyes glistened with pride. "That's all I can ask, my friend. It's not about the money. It's about the impact. Every act of kindness, is a ripple in the ocean of life. In that moment, Lucas understood. He felt a profound connection to Harold, a bond that transcended age and experience. Harold had not only taught him the value of kindness, but had also ignited a passion within him to be a force for good. "Thank you, Harold. Thank you for everything," Lucas said, feeling tears prick at the corners of his eyes. Harold reached out, placing a hand on Lucas's shoulder. "You are going to do great things. Just remember that kindness is a choice. Choose it every day." As they stood there, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the bank, Lucas felt a wave of determination wash over him. He would not let Harold's legacy fade. He would ensure that kindness, like a wildfire, would spread through their community, lighting up lives and creating a brighter future for all. "Let's start right now," Lucas declared, a smile breaking through his grief. "Let's plan that charity together." Harold's smile widened, the warmth in his eyes reflecting a life well lived. In that moment, Lucas knew that he had found not just a mentor, but a true friend. As they sat together, dreaming of the future and the lives they could touch, Lucas felt a sense of peace. Harold's legacy would thrive, and through Lucas, the spirit of kindness would continue to illuminate the world. This is just the beginning. In our playlist, each story carries a powerful message of forgiveness, resilience, and justice. Click now and let these emotional journeys change your perspective.